It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to brew the Magic world. As always, the deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As well as I would really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, check out that description, whatever you can do to help, I'd really appreciate it. We are rocking through Blurmborough, and we're going to get to the commander that I originally loved the look of on first look, and I can't wait to put this card in other decks, but I think it's a banging deck by itself, and that's Bria, Riptide Rogue. A 4-mana Otter Rogue, 3/3 with prowess that gives all their creatures we control prowess. And says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Prowess is a really fun mechanic, allowing creatures to grow rapidly in one turn. And a deck like this can deal a lot of damage. This is a deck that I've had a ton of fun playtesting because there are lines that can just make Bria and your other creatures really big. We talked about Alania last week, and Alania cares a lot more about otters, whereas Bria may have otters in the deck, but the otters aren't the goal. The goal is prowess, as much prowess as we can get, hit as hard as we can get, and try to just shotgun out as many cheap spells as we can to grow our creatures in one turn and threaten our opponents. So we're going to talk about how we're going to try to get other creatures down that have prowess for themselves, or in other ways to get prowess in all of our creatures. More bodies equal more prowess triggers, meaning each individual spell is going to increase more power across our board. So we're going to make cheap tokens and get them down for them to grow. And then we're going to just cover some of the barrage of 1-mana spells we want to cast that can just trigger prowess on all of our creatures and get it going. This deck, I think, looks really fun, and it's a deck that I think can surprise some people with how good it is. So, okay, let's talk about prowess. What are some other ways that prowess exists on our creatures? Well, we have Adelis the Cinder Wind, which says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, wizards you control get +1/+1 to a turn. Bria is not a wizard. Bria is a rogue, but there's a lot of creatures in this deck, even otters, that have prowess type abilities that are wizards. So you're going to see this mini wizard some theme because some of them are really helpful. And so basically what this is doing is giving +2/+2 every time we cast a spell. Balmor, Battle Mage Captain, says whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample until end turn. And that is really good because +5, +6/+6 is great. But if you can't trample through and really hit the damage, then it isn't worth a super, it may not be worth as much. But as soon as we give things trample, then that gets really good. And it makes those 6/6/7/7s a big threat for our opponents. Electrostatic Infantry gets a counter on it each time we cast instant or sorcery. So not only is it getting the buff from Bria, but it's actually getting counters as well. And it has trample baked in naturally. So it's a great attacker for just 2 mana if we can get it rocking and starting. Emberheart Challenger from the new set is Haste and Prowess, Mouse Warrior. It says when it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, we can exile the top card of our library. And if we do, we can play that card until end of turn. The thing I like about Challenger is, one, it has haste. And the hasty, prowessy guys are very good when it comes to setting up our turn the right way and taking it. But there are some of our 1-mana spells that do target a creature, and so the Challenger isn't a bad one for that, because, hey, we can just get an extra card and potentially cast it or play a land off of it, which can be nice. Harmonic Prodigy is the one that really brings the deck together in a lot of ways. It says, if an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. This is going to seem odd, right, because Bria, right, Bria is a rogue, but you notice that its ability says that other creatures have prowess, and the way that that ability is working in effect is it's giving each other creature that prowess ability, meaning its prowess ability will actually go off twice with Harmonic Prodigy out, even though Bria is a rogue. And that's really important when you start to read some of these other wizards and shamans and the abilities they have and how good this can get for our board. Slickshot Show Off, the infamous bird from OTJ, is here. We can plot it to save it for a future turn, but +2/+0 every time we cast a non-creature spell, and it is flying and it is in the air and hasty. This can get very big, especially with the prowess from Bria. Sprite Dragon's another fun one, getting a counter every time we cast a non-creature spell, and it's flying and in the air. Stormcatch Mentor, one of our other wizards, with prowess on the ground, but it reduces the cost of those spells to cast. A lot of our spells aren't going to need that reduction, but we'll take it for some of the ones that do. And then the other big creature we want is Veyran, Voice of Duality. If a casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. What this effectively means is prowess goes off twice instead of once. Any other abilities that happen when we cast spells go off twice instead of once. And then Veyran's ability says whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery, it gets bigger. And Veyran itself can get massive when it's down, just on casting a couple spells without these prowesses going off. There's a few more creatures like this, but I think you can start to see that we're going to try to stack these prowess triggers as much as we can to take advantage of it. Okay, so we have the creatures that naturally have prowess, but how are we going to make just a raw amount of more things? So we have things like Ral, Crackling Wit, which can come in and +1 to make an otter with prowess. That's pretty cool, having double prowess on that creature. But Ral's good for a couple other reasons. One, every time we cast a non-creature spell, you put a loyalty counter on it. And that's a very beneficial ability, considering you get up to his -10, which says we draw 3 cards and all of our instant sorceries then have Storm. Storm meaning they copy for each one you've cast before at that turn. And the -3 is great as well to draw 3 and pitch 2. If we get a lot of lands in our hand as we're shotgunning out spells, we can just draw 3 and pitch 2 lands to keep that train going. Eris, Roar of the Storm is another fun one that already has prowess, but it says it costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instant sorceries in your graveyard. We don't have a ton of a spread. Most of the time, Eris is still going to cost 4 or 6 mana at the top end, but that's okay because at the bottom ability says whenever we cast our second spell each turn, we make a 4/4 Dragon Elemental with flying and prowess. So, hey, prowess starting on a 4/4 body can get a whole lot bigger. Dragon Fodder to make 2 goblins, Krenko's Command to take Moot Goblins, Ral's Reinforcements to make 2 1/1 elementals. These are just cheap ways to get 1/1s down that then get that Bria prowess and can start growing as well. And then one of my single favorite cards in this deck to pair with Bria, because you start to realize how good this can be, especially when you realize that Bria can make creatures unblockable, is Notorious Throng. It says you create X 1/1 fairy rogue creature tokens with flying, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn, and if the spell's prowl cost was paid, you take an extra turn after this one. Well, what's the prowl cost? Prowl cost is 5 and a blue, but you can only pay it if a rogue dealt combat damage to a player. Well, Bria is a rogue, and it can make itself unblockable. Meaning if we can hold the 6 mana up, and we can get Bria big enough, we can make 5, 6, 7 fairy rogue tokens, or if not more, depending on how much. Remember, this is not one specific opponent, this is all of our opponents. In playtesting, I've seen Notorious Throng make me 13, 14 fairy rogues in one turn. And then you take the extra turn and start the prowess train again with 14 fairy rogue tokens in the air, or whatever it is with flying. I think Notorious Throng is one of those cards that may seem expensive, but on the right turn where you can set this up, it is probably going to break in a game completely wide open. Song of Totentans makes a bunch of rats that can't block, but it also gives all your creatures haste until end of turn. I like Totentans a lot. It's a great rate for 1/1s, and it giving everything haste can be beneficial as well. And then Storm Chaser's talent does require a lot of mana, but I think just 1 mana for a 1/1 otter with prowess is great. It is a non-creature spell, so it's going to still target prowess. If we want to get to level 2, we can bring an instant or sorcery from our graveyard back to our hand, which could be beneficial. We have a couple draw spells, things like that we may want to bring back. And then when you get up to 6, every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you're making a blue and red otter creature token with prowess. So there's definitely options here, right? When it comes to getting some more of those little otters, which can stack up and can become a threat to your opponent. But okay, we talked about our prowess triggers, we talked about the cheap creatures. Let's shotgun cheap spells at you. What my goal for the deck was to find as many 1 mana spells as I could that were at least somewhat of a relevant ability and said draw a card. The reason is it's replacing it in your hand, and if you can, let's say I have 6 mana and I cast 6 1 mana spells, that's 6 prowess triggers, and it's going to be a lot for our opponents to deal with. Crash Through, giving all of our creatures trample and drawing a card is a great one. Overmaster, making sure the next thing we cast can't be countered and drawing a card. Renegade Tactics, stopping a specific creature from blocking and draw a card. Note that for this one, we could still target something like one of our creatures that care about whether or not they're targeted with things and still get the ability from it. Slip through space, making a creature unblockable until end of turn and drawing a card. Warlord's Fury, giving all of our creatures first strike until end of turn and drawing a card. Consider, hey, there's a couple of these 1-mana blue spells that do something and then draw a card. Consider Surveils 1 and then draws. Crimson Wisp gives a creature the ability to become red and gain haste until end of turn and draw a card. Leap gives a creature flying until end of turn and draw a card. Peek looks at an opponent's hand and then draws us a card. Psychotic Fury gives a multicolored creature double strike. That could be Bria, that could be Balmor, and a lot of other multicolored creatures in the deck. Draws a card. Temur Battle Rage can just give a creature double strike. The reason double strike can be very important is if Bria, let's say we make a Bria or a Balmor or something like that unblockable, and they're sitting at 9, 9, 10, 10s, 11, 11s. Remember that Bria is our commander. And if it gets that big and is swinging at somebody unblockable, we give it double strike, we will knock somebody out with commander damage. It is still important to keep that in the back of your mind, and Temur Battle Rage can be very good for that. And then Thought Scour, somebody mills 2 and we draw. Again, you're seeing a lot of these 1-mana spells do X, draw a card, increasing that prowess account, and technically increasing the storm count if we do have a few of those cards that care about it. But the point is, you're shotgunning spells out, making your creatures bigger, and a lot of these 1-mana, 2-mana spells are really cheap. You can pick your any of these you want. There's a couple in the deck that are literally just commons from random sets that make a creature a 4/3 or give a creature flying until end of turn. There's a lot of random ones of these 1-drop spells that just do X, draw a card, and that's exactly what we're looking for. But like I said before, this is version 1.0 of the deck. I think there's a lot of finesse that can be brought to a deck like this when we test it, making sure we're picking the right 1-mana spells. You can see we have things like Opt here, which I think probably come in over some other ones, being able to scry 1 and then draw a card. But again, it's hard to know when you put a deck together for the first time what specifically is going to work. And that's where I think testing this may mean you bring more things like Opt or a 2-mana spell that draws you scry 2 and draw a card. Things like that. Those might be more worth it once you test the deck and take out some of the filler ones. You have something like Quicken, which can give a sorcery you cast this turn flash and draw a card. So, there's options. The one card I would be intrigued to see how often it could work is Glamdring. This is from the Lord of the Rings set. It says, equip creature has first strike and gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Well, we're going to be shotgunning them out, right? Adding a bunch of them to our graveyard. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can cast an instant or sorcery from your hand with mana value less than equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. I think this adds an interesting upside where we could potentially cast something for free from our hand. I'm not sure what yet for Glamdring. I think this could be where you could pull in some little bit more sweaty, extra turn spells and things like that, and be able to cast them off the Glamring as you deal damage to people. I think there's a slightly different playline if you bring in the Glamdring and you want to care about things like this. There also would be things like the blue-black sword that lets you cast things out of your graveyard with mana value something or less, I think, when you deal combat damage. There'd be things like that you could kind of tech in and have some fun with. They just weren't my goal for the deck, but I think it's worth considering as we go into it. So let's get into our playtest. Keeping a 2-lander with a talisman. Now, again, the deck really doesn't need more than 5 or 6 mana. We just need to make sure we get Bria down and get it rocking. We got the Krenko's Command. We got a Midnight Clock to get up to our 4 mana. We got that Peak. And then we have a fun creature in Kenra Spell Spear. So on the front side, it's just a 2/2 with Trample and Prowess. It isn't all that sexy, but if you pay 4 mana and flip it over, it becomes a 3/3 with double Prowess, Trample, and Ward 2, which is a very good creature, and it can get very powerful to deal with for our opponent. So turn 1, let's see. I think we should probably get one of these tap lands in, right? We've got 2 of them, and we can reveal this one to have Frostbow coming untapped. So I think turn 1, it's okay. We'll just put a tap land in. Again, I think our goal here is just to work our way up, play the Frostboil, showing the Volatile Fjord, and I'd probably play that Talisman. Again, start working our way up to Bria. It's okay if we take a turn or 2 off. Remember that almost all of the time in Commander, people are taking these first few turns off to get things going. Coast. I think I would Midnight Clock, and then I guess go into Spell Spear for that extra 2 mana. Midnight Clock's going to start getting counters, one on everyone's turn, and when it gets to 12, we shuffle our hand and graveyard into our deck and draw fresh 7. Clock we always need to be a little bit cognizant of when it's going to hit its 12 counter, but I think we'll be okay here. In a game of Commander, it normally means 3 turns, and I think we can get the important things out of our hand before that happens. But hey, Spell Spear's down now. It has Trample, so it's not a bad prowess creature on its own. We'll go into turn 4, and we see a Slick Shot show off. It'd be really great if I could get one of these lands in untapped, so I could play Bria and plot that. But basically, what it would mean is Midnight Clock is now back to us with 4 counters on it, right? 1 for each of our opponents, and now back to us on 4. I think I would play Bria. And I could peek here if I wanted to draw a card, get this up a little bit, make it unblockable if I want to, but I don't know. I kind of think I'd rather focus on next turn, trying to get everything out of my hand before the Midnight Clock goes off. I mean, we're looking at a turn 6 Midnight Clock going off, so I think I'm okay here. Just playing the Bria here for 4, leaving that mana up. If we haven't attacked with the Spell Spirit, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll go to our next turn. Midnight Clock is up to 8 counters. So on the beginning of our next turn, Midnight Clock's going to go off. Man, it kind of sucks for that Throng to be there. But that's okay. We're going to play the Fjord in tap. So now we've got 6 mana, which is why it kind of stinks that we can't get off that Throng now. I think even if I, peek and hit an untapped land, I still think we're in the same spot, because I can't guarantee that Bria gets in unblocked here. If there is a world where Bria hits somebody unblocked here, like if on turn 5 I have any way to knock Bria into anyone, I would immediately do it and play the Centaurius Throng and just profit. But I don't see a world where on turn 5 Bria's not in the air. It's on the ground. It doesn't have unblockable because I have to cast something else to have it be unblockable. I don't see a world where Throng does what I want it to. So I would probably just plot the show off, play the Krenko's command to make those 2 goblins. This is going to make Bria unblockable and make and grow that Spell Spear. I might as well peek here, right? Because we're just going to get it shuffled back in with the Midnight Clock. Make Spell Spear unblockable, so now Bria's a 5/5. The Spell Spear's a 4/4. These tokens have grown, but again, they don't have haste. That's 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. And I've got 1 left and nothing to do with it. So take an attack here. Get some damage in. Kind of stinks, but it's okay. That Midnight Clock's going to go off, and I think we're okay with that. So we would go to our next turn. We would put everything in our graveyard, everything in our hand into our library, shuffle, and draw a fresh 7. And that Midnight Clock exiles. And this is okay because, again, we're going to refresh our hand, potentially get some new spells. We could get our spells back. We got a Krenko's command. I think we had that before, so we got it back. But this just gives us a fresh hand with things to do. So I have more lands, right, which is good. We can potentially take a nice big turn here. I think I'd play the show off here off of plot, because I really think we can take a big turn. And let's start off by hitting this expressive iteration. So we're going to look at the top 3, put 1 into our hand, put 1 on the bottom, and we can exile 1 of them and play it this turn. The reason I'm doing this before I drop a land is so that if we get a land off of expressive iteration, great. Well, the thing would be, so if we got one off it, iteration, we could play it, but we got 3 of them. So 1 of them's going to go on our hand, 1 of them's going to go on the bottom. We'll put the mountain in our hand, and we'll play that Chivalry for turn. Kind of brutal, but hey, you never quite know what's going to happen with the iteration. We'll make Bria unblockable on the turn. Prowess is... I don't know how I'm going to do this. I just want to keep a count. I'm just going to use this ape token. I just want to keep a count of how many spells I've cast this turn so we can do this later. So... Expressive iteration is 1. We played the Shivan for turn. Let's Krenko's command. So this goes up to 2. And we'll make 2 more goblins, right? And then I have enough mana left to Prismari command. I will, let's see, draw 2, discard 2. Makes a ton of sense since my hand is full of lands. And then we'll make a treasure. And so Prismari Command becomes my third spell. Draw 2, and then pitch 2. We will pitch 2 lands. So 3 total spells. So Bria is a 6/6. The Spell Spear is a 8/8. We'll make each of these 3 unblockable, and then Show Off is a 4/2, 6/2, 8/2, 10/2 in the air. So I mean, good damage. That's 10, 16, 24 damage to somebody unblockable, if that's, right, what I wanted to do this turn on turn 5. Pick the player I'm the most afraid of, or what have you, and just deal the damage in. And again, now we can try to set up for next turn where we try to take another big turn and get these goblins involved in well, which can grow up too. So we're going to turn 6. Getting killed on the lands, getting flooded, but that's a-okay. We'll start with Thought Scour. Let's mill somebody for 2 and draw a card. We will make Bria unblockable. I guess now knowing that we weren't going to draw another card, it would make sense to flip this Spell Spear over. But that kind of stinks. It stinks that we ran out of spells, but that unfortunately is what can happen. And it's a reality with this deck, and it's something to pay attention to when we're doing that. Let's just get the Castle Vantress down, since we do control an island. I guess I'll flip the the Spell Stalker over now. I mean, all of these got +1/+1. We'll make Bria unblockable. And again, just take what we can get here for some damage. It's kind of brutal. We didn't get into anything that can draw us a card. But that's okay. That's the risk sometimes. And we have to take it. So we'll go one more turn, see what we can find. We see Dragon Fodder, which we can play, making us 2 more goblins. We could make Bria unblockable. The Spell Stalker gets bigger. I think now we just need a way to draw cards, and I think we'd be back off to the races. So other than make myself more sad, let's pop into the next playtest. Again, I think what really screwed us over was just whiffing on the iteration. Had we hit another spell, we probably could have kept going there for some good stuff. But hey, it happens. It's Commander. 99 card decks means that sometimes you're going to get into the weird stuff. And we just kind of got to be okay with it. So here we're keeping a 3-lander, the iteration, a couple spells, Balmor. I like it. We actually just drew Eris, so there's another way to potentially get some counters. Or get some tokens. So turn 2, I'll play that Balmor. Get it started. Balmor can be a great attacker in the meantime before we get Bria out. Turn 3, I mean, I guess this could be another turn where we do the expressive iteration, but I kind of like the idea of waiting. I mean, we have a nice set of spells waiting for us to take a big turn, so I kind of like the idea of just holding off here and going into our next turn. Turn 4, we see a Jeska's Will. Does that change my mind? Going 3 in would give me 7 right now. I could cast Bria, but I don't think I could cast Eris 2, because I only have 1 blue mana here. So I think I would just play Bria, set up for next turn, turn 5 going off, having lots of spells, and kind of see what we can get ourselves up to. So turn 5, we draw a Talisman. I think we have no reason not to iteration here. It could lead to some rough, but I think it's worth giving this a shot. Both Bria and the buff for Balmor going off will make Balmor unblockable. We reveal Stormcatch Mentor, a Thought Scorer, and Storm Chaser Mage. So Thought Scorer can draw us a card. Mentor just has another prowess and reduces the cost of spells, which could be interesting. The Mage is just another prowess creature, but it has haste. So we put 1 into our hand, 1 on the bottom, and 1 we can play this turn. Let's put Thought Scour in our hand. Let's put the Mage on bottom. And let's say we can play the Mentor this turn. I kind of am thinking about just playing the Mentor this turn. Hitting with Bria, hitting somebody with the Balmor. Maybe pushing our turn 1 more turn to see if there's anything better we can do here. So turn 6, we've still got 4 mana. We've got 1 thing engraved, so Eris is a 6 mana now. But alright, here's my thought. If I play the Talisman, I can play 3 spells, which isn't bad, right? So let's go Talisman. Trigger all of them. We'll make Balmor unblockable. So we've got, right, again, we've got one spell, because it is non-creature for prowess, but it's not non-creature for Balmor. So Balmor doesn't have a trigger yet, but that's okay. So now we have 3 mana. We'll go 1 for Crash Through to draw, increasing this to 2 for prowess, and then 1 for Balmor. We'll make Balmor unblockable. So we've got 2 mana left. I could Jessica's Will here, because it only costs 2 mana because of Stormcatch, and I imagine somebody has 7, right? Somebody has to have 7 cards in hand still at this point. So let's say that they do. This is another cost for Bria, another one for Balmor. We'll give the Stormcatch Mentor unblockable. Let's say we add 7 red. And we're at 3 different, so this Eris is at 4 mana, but we've got 7 red now. I'll use one of it for Warlord's Fury to draw a card, and then we've run out of creatures to be unblockable, but that's okay. Another one here, another Balmor trigger. Give Bria double strike, draw another card. Another one here, another one here. And again, all 3 of our creatures are unblockable, so that's 2 mana I've used, because that was reduced, so I've got 5 red left. Give Balmor double strike with Temur Battle Rage. Give a counter here. So we were up to that many more attacks. That did draw a card. That drew us the Epiphany. And then I've got 3 or 4 red mana and the Scoria. So let's play the Score. Mill somebody for 2, draw a card. More Balmor triggers, and I'm out of blue mana now because I used it all. And I've just got the red left floating. But we had 7 Balmor triggers. So Balmor is a 10 plus 6. So she's a 16 with double strike. So it's going to knock somebody out commander damage. Balmor is a 8/14 with double strike, so it has the potential to dome somebody else for damage, and Shadow, the Stormcatch Mentor, is an 8/14. So I mean, we could put these 2 at the same player. We have the potential to just knock 2 players out this turn on turn 6 just by shotgunning all those spells off. And I would just pick the 2, right? The 2 players I'm the least afraid of. We draw for the next turn. And we're back, right? We're back to square one. Eris sees 1, 2, 3 different costs in our graveyard. So it's a 4 mana creature. But I don't really see the point of, putting it out yet. I'd preordain. Let's make Bria unblockable. So, 1 for Bria. 1 for that. Let's be scry 2 and then draw. We scry Stormchaser's Talent and Ral. I like Ral. I mean, it's a way to make another Otter, and it's a way to potentially grow it. Stormchaser Talent, same thing to make the Otter. So I'm going to put the Talent on bottom. I'm going to put Crackling Wit on Ral on top and draw. So we just used 1 mana there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana left. 4 to play Ral. That increases Balmor, right? But it doesn't increase, or increases Bria, but doesn't increase Balmor. I'll get Balmor unblockable. Tick up Ral to make an Otter, just in case we take another turn. And then I would just Krenko's command, so we'll get another Bria trigger. We'll make Mentor unblockable. Make the 2 goblins. Ral gets another loyalty counter. That costs 1 less, right? So 1, 5, 6. So we've got technically 1 mana left with the Talisman. But Bria is a 7/9/9 unblockable. Balmor is a 4/6/6 unblockable, and the Stormcatch is a 6/6 unblockable. So 6, that's 21 at somebody unblockable on turn 7, and I mean we probably just clean it up next turn. So I know that there's some Playtest Magical Christmas Land going on there because we kind of have to assume certain things. But that just goes to show you what we could do. Again, you can bring down the average cost of the spells in the deck by a little bit, take certain cards out, put more back in. I think the deck could use some fun tinkering, as you get into the testing. But it's a deck I really like the look of. I think it seems really interesting. And I mean, the card draw is just going to help you get through the lands, get into more spells, the Faithless Lootings of the world, to just pitch those lands and get more spells and just keep the train going. But let me know what you think of Bria in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next.